Everybody, my name's Eric Hopkins, aka JEL. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, Warner Brothers has officially announced that they are going to be releasing a new Lord of the Rings film entitled The Hunt for Gollum. So, let's take a look at the details here over on Variety's website here. Warner Brothers to release a new Lord of the Rings movie, The Hunt for Gollum, in 2026. Peter Jackson to produce, and Andy Serkis will direct. Warner Brothers will release the first of its new batch of live action Lord of the Rings films in 2026, which will focus on Andy Serkis's Gollum character. Interestingly, that this is talking about how it'll be the first of new batches of movies. We'll see what else they got in store here. Original The Lord of the Rings trilogy filmmaker Peter Jackson and his partners Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens are producing the movie and will, quote, be involved every step of the way, according to Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav said during a earnings call on Thursday. The project is currently in the early stages of script development from writers Walsh and Boyens, along with Phoebe Gittins and Artie Papagiorgio, I think that's how you say that, and will explore storylines yet to be told, David Zaslav said. In a press release from Warner Brothers later Thursday morning, the studio revealed that the working title for the film is The Hunt for Gollum, and it will be directed by and star Andy Serkis in his iconic titular role of Gollum. The film will be executive produced by Ken Kamins and Serkis and Imaginarium's Jonathan Cavendish. Yeah, it sounds like we're going to be getting much more of the Lord of the Rings movies moving forward here. We didn't quite have an idea exactly where they were going to be going with some of that. And obviously, I'm going to flat out admit right here up front that I don't know everything about the deep lore that is J.R.R. Tolkien's, stuff here. So, I know what I've seen in the movies and things like that, but I don't know every ins and out of the book series and things like that. So, bear with me here. So, the question becomes, what does the movie The Hunt for Gollum look like? It appears that we're going to be getting possibly a movie based on the lines that were in the Fellowship of the Ring. It could involve Aragorn here. The news is out that Peter Jackson and his Lord of the Rings collaborators will executive produce a new movie set in Middle Earth with Andy Serkis directing and reprising his role as Gollum. So there's just one question: what exactly could it all be about? With real experts on the text like Philippa Boyens, Peter Jackson, and Fran Walsh involved, there's one thing that leaps to mind immediately: a 50-day slog during which Aragorn captured Gollum in a marsh and dragged him bodily overland for close to 900 miles until they reached the court prisons of the Elven King Thranduil. Uh, Most of what we know about this period in Aragorn and Gollum's lives comes from the text of the Fellowship of the Ring, from some asides during the Council of Elrond about Gandalf's long quest to verify whether Bilbo's ring was indeed the fabled One Ring. Jackson's movie shortened this period for brevity, but in Tolkien's text, 17 years elapsed between Bilbo's birthday and when Frodo gets the ring, and the scene when Gandalf returns to see if he's kept it secret, whether he's kept it safe. Gandalf spent a lot of time looking for Gollum during that time frame so that he could question the creature about how he got the ring. To that end, he recruited Aragorn's skills as a tracker. But finding Gollum in all of Middle Earth turned out to be a real needle in a haystack kind of thing, and eventually they decided to give up. Gandalf went to Gondor to read ancient texts, and Aragorn headed west back to his rangers. That's when, by complete chance, Aragorn found Gollum's tracks in the dead marshes and caught him. Then it took him over a month and a half to drag his prisoner to civilization so that Gandalf could interrogate him. You know, that scene where Sam and Frodo are dragging Gollum along while he screams like he's hell's own toddler. Well, imagine that, but for 7 weeks. And Tolkien makes it extraordinarily, maybe hilariously clear that this was not a fun time. So the interlude that comes from the book, that is really the only thing in Lord of the Rings that matches up with a hunt for Gollum, as it were, in the title. Nobody else really hunts for him. Sure, he was tortured by Sauron, but only after he freely wandered into Mordor. He did eventually escape from Mirkwood's prisons, but elves lost his trail pretty much immediately. If we're really talking about Aragorn's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad mouth here, does that mean that we're going to be getting Viggo Mortensen and Ian McKellen coming back to play Aragorn and Gandalf? What about Lee Pace and Orlando Bloom as Mirkwood's King Thranduil and Legolas? Tolkien fans put together a well-regarded unofficial The Hunt for Gollum film in 2009, but at a mere 38 minutes long. It was a nice fan film that was made out there. But how on Middle Earth does this single paragraph saga get built into a feature-length blockbuster? That's the million-dollar question right now. And not only that, like I said, are you going to be bringing back Viggo Mortensen and Ian McKellen to play these iconic roles again and de-age them, or how's that going to work? Obviously, Gandalf being thousands of years old, you can maybe play on the fact that he doesn't age a whole lot, but the actor Ian McKellen, I'm sure, has aged since he played the character last in the last Hobbit film. So that's going to be interesting to see how they play that out. Not to mention Ian McKellen's not getting any younger. I know this movie is coming out in about 2 years' time, so you might be able to get him to come back and play Gandalf one more time if you can hurry it. But like I said, God God forbid something happens to the man, and he's not around for us to have him grace the role of Gandalf again. I really don't want anybody else playing Gandalf personally. That's just me. But especially since this kind of takes place during the time frame of the Fellowship of the Ring, you almost kind of need those characters to come back and portray them, because if you cast a different actor, it's going to feel a little disjointed. So I don't know. That's just me personally. It's probably easier to de-age somebody like Viggo Mortensen to come back and play Aragorn. But everybody else, I mean, Orlando Bloom as Legolas really hasn't aged a whole lot, in my opinion. Lee Pace coming back as well. You could do that. But yeah, that's a big question that I'm having with this movie. So I'm wondering where they're going to go with it. Yes, it sounds like a lot of this is based off a very small section in the Fellowship of the Ring novel. So yeah, I mean, and not only that, it's a line that was kind of said in passing by Gandalf in the first film, talking about how he searched for him a long time to try to question him, but that was before the Dark Lord and obviously his minions got a hold of him and things like that. So, and then of course that after they torched him, he shouts out Shire, and that's when it kind of leads them to Frodo in the ring, and that's when Frodo has to go on his journey to Mount Doom. This kind of sounds like a little bit of an in between cool, because it's kind of in between the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring and the rest of the Fellowship of the Ring, kind of like a 17-year gap there. Which again, since I don't know the entire lore of the Lord of the Rings franchise here in the books and stuff, I wasn't fully aware that there was 17 years between Bilbo's birthday and Frodo getting the ring until the time that Gandalf came back to check and see if the ring was still safe. I had no idea about that, because I don't think the movie really alludes to it that much at all, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, anytime you could get Andy Serkis to come back and direct this film, which he directed Venom: Let There Be Carnage. A lot of people wasn't a big fan of that, but he's got some other directing chops under him as well. But I think anytime you get him to come back and play this iconic role of Gollum that he made absolutely famous here, that's only a good thing in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to seeing him return for that. The other thing that really makes me excited for this, and I know a lot of people weren't a big fan of possibly the Rings of Powers show, and they maybe thought the Hobbit trilogy was even a bit of a step down from the Lord of the Rings trilogy that came out back in the early 2000s, is the fact that we're getting the original writers back from the first three Lord of the Rings films to come back and write this film here for Andy Serkis, as he's going to be directing it as well. So that makes me feel a lot better about it, that we're getting people like Peter Jackson, who obviously will not be returning to direct this film like he did the original six films. But at the same time, I think it's really cool that he's going to at least be involved all the way, and all the people that he worked with him under those films as well will be involved with this as well. So I think in that regard, we got a lot of promise here. And I know the Lord of the Rings has also got an animated film coming out in December of 2024 entitled The War for the Rohirrim. So that will also be hitting theaters as well. So the Lord of the Rings is definitely going to be getting some more movies here, because obviously Warner Brothers definitely wants that Lord of the Rings cheddar. They want that money. So they're not going to stop making these sequels anytime soon, and spinoffs and things like that. They're going to be kind of filling in the gaps of the story. And I kind of need to catch up on the Rings of Power personally. So, but I love everything that they're doing with it so far. I'm a big fan of it, even though some of them I understand is probably a little lesser than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Pretty high bar to live up to, not gonna lie to you, but I like the stories they're telling, and I'm looking forward to seeing more. But the real question here is, guys, what do you guys think about the fact that they're doing another Lord of the Rings film, The Hunt for Gollum? Do you think it's a story worth telling, or do you think it's enough to cover a whole 2-hour film? Comment below, let me know what you guys think, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And until my next video, guys, take care and God bless.